My name is Emily Carter, and I still remember the look on my mother's face when the doctor finally said the words she had spent years denying. She wasn't crying because she was happy for me. She wasn't crying because she felt guilty. She was crying because the truth was finally out, and there was nowhere left to hide. For nearly 8 years, my parents told everyone I was faking my disability. They said I exaggerated my pain. They said I wanted attention. They told relatives, neighbors, teachers, and even some doctors that I was making my condition seem worse than it really was. But what nobody knew was that the very people accusing me of lying were hiding the real reason I ended up in a wheelchair in the first place. And when that truth finally came out, it destroyed everything they had spent years trying to protect. So tell me honestly, if your own parents ruined your life and then spent years blaming you for it, would you ever forgive them? I'm Emily Carter, and this story started when I was 14 years old. Before everything happened, I was the kind of girl who never stopped moving. I played soccer, ran track, went hiking with friends, and spent every free minute outdoors. My teachers always joked that I had enough energy for 3 students. My father, Michael Carter, loved bragging about my athletic abilities. He had been a football player in high school, and he constantly pushed me to train harder and compete more. At the time, I thought it was because he believed in me. Looking back now, I realize he cared more about success and appearances than he cared about me. My mother, Susan Carter, was always concerned with what other people thought. She wanted our family to look perfect. We had a nice house, good schools, and a reputation as the happy family everyone admired. From the outside, everything seemed wonderful, but inside our home, appearances mattered more than honesty. Problems were hidden, mistakes were covered up, and whenever something threatened the family's image, it was buried immediately. The day that changed my life forever happened during summer vacation. My father suggested we take the boat out to a nearby lake. We had done it many times before, and I was excited. I remember loading snacks into the truck and talking about soccer tryouts that were coming up in a few months. I had dreams of earning a scholarship someday. Everything felt normal. Then I noticed something strange. There were several empty beer cans in the truck. I remember asking my mother if Dad should really be driving the boat. She laughed and said, "Emily, your father does this all the time." At the time, I trusted her. I wish I hadn't. The weather was perfect that afternoon. The lake was crowded with families enjoying the sunshine. For the first hour, everything seemed fine. Then my father started showing off. He accelerated faster than usual. He made sharp turns. He laughed whenever the boat bounced over large waves. I remember feeling nervous. I remember asking him to slow down. He ignored me. A few minutes later, everything went wrong. My father attempted a sharp turn around another boat. We hit a large wave at the wrong angle. The boat launched upward. For a split second, I felt weightless. Then I was thrown. I hit the water hard. Something struck my back. And suddenly I couldn't move my legs. The pain was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I remember screaming. I remember crying. I remember begging my parents to help me because I couldn't feel anything below my waist. The ambulance arrived quickly, but I already knew something was terribly wrong. The next several months were a blur of hospitals, surgeries, and rehabilitation centers. Doctors explained that I had suffered a severe spinal injury. They weren't sure if I would ever walk normally again. Some specialists were optimistic, others weren't. Every day became a battle against pain, fear, and uncertainty. At first, my parents seemed supportive. My mother stayed beside my hospital bed. My father promised we would get through it together. But everything changed when questions started being asked about the accident. Several witnesses reported that my father appeared intoxicated. There was talk of investigations. Insurance companies became involved. Lawyers started asking questions. And suddenly, my parents became more concerned about protecting themselves than helping me recover. The official story became simple. It was just a tragic accident. Nobody was responsible. Bad luck. That's what they told everyone. That's what they told me. Years passed. I worked through physical therapy. I endured endless doctor appointments. Some improvements came, but not enough. There were days when I could stand briefly with assistance. Most of the time, I needed my wheelchair. The nerve damage caused constant pain. Yet somehow, instead of supporting me, my parents started treating me like I was exaggerating. At family gatherings, my mother would make little comments. Emily's stronger than she acts. Or the doctors aren't even sure she's really in that much pain. At first I thought she was struggling to cope. Then the comments became accusations. By the time I was 17, my parents openly suggested that I was using my disability for attention. Imagine hearing your own mother tell relatives that you're dramatic while you're sitting in a wheelchair because of an injury that changed your life forever. It broke my heart. School wasn't much easier. Rumors spread. Some classmates believed my parents. Teachers looked at me differently. People whispered behind my back. And because my own parents were questioning my condition, many people assumed there had to be some truth to it. I felt completely alone. When I turned 18, things got even worse. My parents started pressuring me not to use my wheelchair at certain events. They claimed it embarrassed the family. My father would tell me I looked too disabled. My mother would ask me to smile more because I was making people uncomfortable. Every conversation felt like another attack. Eventually, I moved out. I rented a tiny apartment. I worked remotely whenever I could. Money was tight. Life was difficult. But at least I wasn't living with people who constantly made me feel like a burden. For years, I kept limited contact with my parents. Birthdays, Christmas, the occasional phone call. Nothing more. Then something happened that changed everything. When I was 26, I attended a physical therapy conference for people with spinal injuries. While speaking with another attendee named Karen Mitchell, I casually mentioned my boating accident. The moment I described the lake and the year it happened, her expression changed. She asked several specific questions. Then she asked something that made my stomach drop. "Was your father's name Michael Carter?" I stared at her. "Yes." Karen immediately looked uncomfortable. After a long pause, she explained that her husband had been one of the first responders who arrived at the accident scene years earlier. My heart started racing. She offered to connect me with him. A week later, I met her husband. What he told me changed my life forever. According to him, investigators originally believed alcohol played a major role in the accident. Multiple witnesses reported seeing my father drinking. Statements were collected. Evidence existed. Reports were written. But somehow the investigation suddenly stopped. Documents disappeared. Witnesses were never contacted again. The case quietly faded away. At first I couldn't believe it. Then he mentioned another name. Robert Carter. My grandfather. One of the wealthiest and most influential men in our county. The man who cared about family reputation more than anything else. Suddenly everything made sense. The lies. The denials. The accusations. The gaslighting. If my disability was acknowledged as the result of my father's drunk boating, then Michael Carter could have faced consequences. But if I was simply exaggerating my condition, then nobody had to feel guilty. Nobody had to answer questions. Nobody had to accept responsibility. For weeks I couldn't sleep. I gathered records, medical reports, witness statements, old emails, insurance documents, everything I could find. And the deeper I dug, the worse it became. I discovered evidence showing that both of my parents knew exactly how intoxicated my father had been. I found emails discussing how to manage the family's reputation. I found messages showing relatives had questioned inconsistencies in their story years earlier. Most painful of all, I discovered proof that my mother had known the truth from the very beginning. She knew. The entire time. Yet she spent years accusing me of exaggerating the disability that existed because she chose to protect my father. I cried for days. Not because of the accident. Not because of the wheelchair. Because of the betrayal. The people who were supposed to protect me had sacrificed me to protect themselves. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to put yourself in my position. Imagine spending years being called a liar by your own parents. Imagine finding proof that they were hiding the truth all along. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet and moved on with your life? Or would you have exposed everything? Comment below what choice you think you would have made, because at that moment, I honestly didn't know what the right answer was. Eventually, I made my decision. My family held a massive reunion every summer. Dozens of relatives attended. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, everyone. And I decided that reunion would be the day the truth came out. When the day finally arrived, I was terrified. My hands shook. My heart raced. Several times I considered backing out. Then I looked at my wheelchair. I remembered every insult, every accusation, every time someone suggested I was faking. And I kept going. About halfway through the reunion, I asked everyone for their attention. The room became quiet. I started talking about the accident, the recovery, the years of pain. Then I began presenting evidence, witness statements, investigation reports, emails, photos, documents, one piece at a time. The room became completely silent. My father's face turned pale. My mother's expression changed from confusion to panic. Relatives began asking questions. Questions they couldn't answer. Questions they had avoided for years. Then one of my uncles looked directly at my father and asked, "Michael, were you drunk that day?" My father denied it. Again. But this time nobody believed him. Not after everything they had seen. Not after all the evidence. The lies that had survived for years finally collapsed. My mother started crying. My father started yelling. They accused me of trying to destroy the family. That's when I finally said the words I had waited years to say. You destroyed this family the day you chose your reputation over your daughter. The entire room went silent. Nobody defended them. Nobody. For the first time in my life, people saw the truth. The aftermath was explosive. Relatives cut contact with my parents. Family friends distanced themselves. Old secrets started surfacing. Apparently, this wasn't even the first time my grandfather had used his influence to make problems disappear. The family's perfect image shattered almost overnight. As for me, something unexpected happened. I felt free. Not healed. Not happy. But free. For years I had questioned my own memories. For years I wondered if maybe I was somehow the problem. Now I finally knew I wasn't. The truth was out. Several months later, my parents tried reaching out. Not because they wanted to apologize. Not because they accepted responsibility. Because they wanted the scandal to disappear. Even then, they still found ways to excuse their actions. There was never a real apology. Never genuine accountability. So I made a choice. I walked away. Some people told me I should forgive them. Maybe one day I will. But forgiveness doesn't mean allowing people to continue hurting you. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is create distance between yourself and the people who refuse to take responsibility for the damage they've caused. Today, my life isn't perfect. I still live with chronic pain. I still face challenges every day. There are things I may never be able to do again. But I also have something I didn't have before. Peace. I have friends who believe me. People who support me. People who love me for who I am. And that's worth more than any fake family image ever could be. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's that the truth always finds a way to surface. People can hide it, they can deny it, they can bury it under lies for years, but eventually the truth comes out. And when it does, the people who spent years hiding it often have the most to lose. So that's my story. Was I wrong for exposing my parents after everything they did? Or would you have done the same thing in my position? Let me know in the comments. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this. And don't forget to share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Thank you for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next story.